Hey everybody, USA History Guy talking about the shots that were fired at Lexington and Concord that started the American Revolution.
History Guy.
By the fall of 1774, British General Gage had sent troops from Boston to begin rounding up and pilfering ammunition supplies of the American patriots in Massachusetts. This did not go over well. Until this point, there was still a lot of people against going into full revolt. Yeah, the people of Boston and Samuel Adams may have been for it, but it took some convincing. One of the people leading the charge for revolution in the South was a famous statesman named Patrick Henry. He stood up on the floor right around the time that Gage sent those troops from Boston. He said, "Peace, peace, gentlemen may cry peace, but there is no peace." He passionately stormed around the floor, giving his famous speech where he said, "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery?" Which you could see someone in the room kind of wondering, don't we still totally have slavery? Yeah, dude, but he's on a roll, let him go. Patrick Henry said, "Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." This is a famous speech. Well, it was in the spring of 1775 that Gage finally sent the troops to get the ammunition supply in Concord, Massachusetts. Dispatched to alert the countryside of what was coming were Paul Revere and William Dawes. Paul Revere gets all the famous stories in history, but he was the PR guy, so it stands to reason. They charged through for the midnight ride, alerting everyone that the British are coming, the British are coming. About 70 Minutemen rushed out, and they arrived at Lexington where they met the British troops. The redcoats appeared on the road and said, "Lay down your arms." And they repeated the order. Colonists were brave and they refused to do so. Finally, shots were fired and 8 of those Minutemen were killed. News of this spread rapidly. There were all kinds of rumors flying that night. Nobody knew how many men had been killed. And when the redcoats set fire to some of the munition supply up there in Concord, whatever was left of it, people saw the smoke and thought that the entire cities and towns were being burned. So there was a lot of confusion, and that led to 4,000 Minutemen responding, catching up to the British, and firing upon them, killing many, chasing them as far as they could. All in all, about 70 some redcoats were killed, another 200 were wounded or missing. It was officially a revolution at that point. So while all of the colonists who were excited for war were basically high-fiving and huzzahing and it's on like Donkey Konging, the rest of the colonies had to figure out who was going to lead this new endeavor. So it was in May of 1775 the Congress reformed. This is the Second Continental Congress, what will eventually just become the U.S. Congress. Once again, it was 12 colonies who were represented. Georgia was not involved. A new face appeared very significantly this time around. His name was Thomas Jefferson, and he was brilliant. More on him when we get to the Declaration. It was also at this point that it was time to prepare for defense. There was no other way that the military effort would succeed without a Southern leader. Everybody in the room looked to George Washington. He was the obvious pick. And so it was that the Continental Army was commissioned America's first under George Washington. There's a couple of lessons of history that are consistent throughout. One, wars are expensive. Continental Congress had to figure out how to pay for all of this. Another important lesson of history is that it's very difficult to go attack somebody when they are armed and protecting their homeland. When they know the community, they know the neighborhoods, they know all the secret ways to get around places. And that's what the British were up against. So through the summer towards the fall of 1775, it was really hard for the British to simply put down the rebellion. George Washington chased the redcoats out of Boston Harbor. There was a couple of skirmishes down in the South, in Virginia, and even down in Charleston, South Carolina. By the fall of 1775, America was ready to commission its first navy, and King George outright declared that this was, for sure, a rebellion. But the emotional ties to Britain were still strong. It would take some convincing by influential writers like Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, who would famously write documents that would leave a mark on world history. We're going to talk about those in the next video. Common sense, and then the Declaration of Independence, as the American Revolution is in full bloom by 1776. Subscribe for the next videos from USA History Guy.